Aidan Hutchinson became the Detroit Lions' first defensive player to make the NFL's top 100 list since 2020, which is a huge accomplishment. But what's next for the Lions' up and coming defensive star? We're going to talk about it right now. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the recent news that dropped yesterday about how Aidan Hutchinson made the NFL's top 100 players list, coming in at number 88. Now, this is not just a huge accomplishment for Hutch, it's also a huge sign for the Detroit Lions, who were completely shut out of this list just last year. And when we're talking about defensive players specifically, the Lions haven't had a player make this list since Darius Slay did it back in 2020. So, in total, this is actually a really big deal because it's kind of a sign that the Lions are trending in the right direction. But when looking at Hutch specifically, it's somewhat easy to see why he made this list when you look at the type of year he put together. I mean, he was second on the Lions defense in percentage of snaps played. I mean, Hutch racked up 958 total snaps for the Lions defense, and only Max Crosby had more snaps played than him when looking at defensive linemen in the NFL. That's a really impressive usage rate for just a rookie, even if he is the second overall pick. But Hutch wasn't just being used a lot, he was actually putting together plays on the field as well, racking up 52 tackles, 9.5 sacks, 53 pressures, 2 fumble recoveries, and 3 interceptions. And that latter part, the 9.5 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and 3 interceptions, is first ever by a rookie and only the second defensive lineman in NFL history to ever do such a thing. Again, a lot of reasons to see why Hutch made this list. Even when you look at his PFF grades, right? 80.7 overall, which is 18th among 72 edge rushers in the NFL who at least played 500 snaps. And that was first among rookies. And we got to also mention the fact that he finished second in defensive rookie of the year voting. So Hutch had a lot of things going for him. Maybe started the year a little slow, but near the back end of the year, looking specifically at week 11 to the end of the regular season, Hutch was putting together an amazing performance, even so much so that it earned him an 89.7 PFF grade, which was third highest among all edge rushers during that time. He also tallied 17 run stops, which is tied for eighth during that stretch. So again, Hutch was definitely putting together a performance during last season that definitely warranted him getting on this list. And if I'm being honest and fully transparent, him being on this list to me isn't surprising. Him being at 88 is a little surprising just because I know how talented the NFL is. And even though all of those numbers and those metrics I just ran off to you are true, it's tough to make this list, period. I mean, it's only 100 players that are going to be on this list. And so the fact that he made it out of the 90s is truly, truly impressive to me. Now, with that said, though, going into the 2023 season, I think we start to have to look ahead as far as what does Hutch have to do to be able to build upon this new honor? Because again, personally to me, the NFL players top 100 list is almost more important, or I would even say drastically more important than even the Pro Bowl, because it's something that's voted on by the players themselves. So when Hutch's peers are putting him on this pedestal and saying like, "Hey, you're one of the 100 best," it definitely starts to put a spotlight on him, or a bigger spotlight on him, to go into the 2023 season and have an even greater performance. So, with that said, what does Hutch necessarily have to do, in my eyes, to be able to build upon this newly acquired accolade? Well, it really kind of just boils down to two things for me personally. The first is consistency. Hutch, while finishing the year with 9.5 sacks, kind of started the year kind of somewhat hot, but then slowed down and really saw his sack production and his pressure production really tail off over the next 4 games. Again, finishing with 9.5 sacks was great, but when you look at the fact that 3 of them came against the Washington Commanders, and over the next 4 games, Hutch didn't register a single sack and only had 8 total pressures, it's a little disheartening when you start considering what you need from your star defensive end. And looking at 2023 specifically, Hutch is going to have to be way more disruptive and way more productive if the Lions defense is looking to climb out of the bottom where they were much of last year. And when I say that, I'm not necessarily saying like, hey, Hutch needs to have a sack every single year, but he definitely needs to make his presence more felt. If he's not getting sacks, you would love to see him racking up more tackles for loss. You would love to see him putting more pressure on quarterbacks and allowing and setting up his other defensive line mates to get sacks as well. Whatever the case may be, Hutch's presence is going to have to be much more consistent from game to game as the Lions go throughout the 2023 season. Now, I know if I start bringing up consistency or saying that's, Hutch needs to generate more pressure or generate more sacks, one of the first things that people are going to point out to me is like, hey, but what about the fact of Hutch being double teamed just as much as any other defensive lineman in the league not named Micah Parsons? Well, to that, this is another area where I think Hutch needs to improve as a defensive end and as somebody that's going to be heralded as the best defensive lineman on your team, you have to be able to beat double teams. It may not sound fair, but at the end of the day, the best defensive linemen know this is what they're getting into week in and week out. And Hutch is going to have to grow his game in such a way that he can be able to beat that when teams decide to employ that strategy against him. Now, it's going to help that he's going to have healthy defensive linemen on the roster with him. Charles Harris coming back, Romeo Okwara being a year removed from his Achilles injury, Josh Pascal being healthier than he was last year. And let's not forget James Houston, who in my eyes is probably their most natural and talented pass rusher, will also be, in the mix as well, whether it's on third downs or even earlier downs as well. So some of those things will deter some amount of attention from Hutch. But even if he's still somewhat near the top in double team percentage, Hutch has to find a way of beating that and being able to still be disruptive. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's getting the sack all the time, but if two guys are on you, you should be able to, again, be disruptive enough to make the job easier for the person next to you or on the other end of the line to be able to get to the quarterback or to the running back and cause some disruption. So at the end of the day, that's pretty much it for me when it comes to Aidan Hutchinson and being able to improve from where he is right now. Again, this is a huge accomplishment for him and the team. They're clearly trending in the right direction. They're being talked about all over the national media, and so much so that your head coach is almost saying like, hey, we have to be able to dial back some of the hype. And even with a player like Aidan Hutchinson saying that this team still needs to have that underdog mentality. All of these things are basically a sign to me that the team has their heads in the right place. But when it comes to Hutch specifically, he's got to definitely rise his game up to the next level and be just that disruptive force that the Lions assumed they were getting when they drafted him second overall. He did it in 2022. I expected to see it again in 2023, but at a much larger clip. Whether that's him getting 9.5 sacks again, or even doubling that production and getting close to 18, 19 sacks, or even if he's just getting 12 sacks. At the end of the day, the Lions are going to need Aidan Hutchinson to play like a top 100 player throughout the course of 2023 if they truly expect to accomplish the goals that they have in front of them. So, with that said, let me know what you guys think of this evaluation and my expectations of Hutch going into 2023. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there something that you specifically think Hutch needs to get better at so that he can continue to climb the ranks of the NFL's greats? Let me know. Also, be sure to hit the like button on this video. And if you're new to this channel and you've never subscribed before, hit the subscribe button. Also, be sure to hit the notification bell as well so that you're notified every time we at Pride of Detroit upload a new video. I appreciate you guys taking the time to check out this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.